Good afternoon and welcome to the Public Works Committee meeting for February the 19th, 2021. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Members of the
Mike.
public are advised that our meetings are webcast.
We need your mic.
Gee, it works a lot better when you put your microphone to your mouth and your headphone to your ear. I apologize. We'll try that again at full volume. Good afternoon and welcome to the Public Works Committee meeting for February the 19th, 2021. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Members of the public are advised that our meetings are webcast live by the City of Hamilton and temporarily archived on the city's website. As well, a reminder that all electronic devices are to be switched to a non-audible function during committee meetings. Members are reminded of the 5-minute time limit, which will be adhered to during this meeting. Members can submit another request to speak if they require more time to ask questions or make comments. I'll now commence a roll call. Please indicate your presence when I call your name. Councillor Collins.
Present, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Danko.
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Farr. Here. Councillor Ferguson. I see you.
Yeah, I'm present. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Jackson.
Ward 6 has joined you, Madam Chair.
Lovely. Councillor Marula.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair. Present.
Good afternoon, Councillor. Councillor Nan.
Good afternoon, present. Thank you.
Councillor Pauls. I don't see her.
I'm here.
Oh,
I'm here.
I don't see her, but I hear her. I do see you now. Councillor Pearson.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair. Present.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Councillor Pearson. And Councillor Whitehead. I don't see or hear him. Okay. Madam Clerk, are there any changes to the agenda?
Yes, Madam Chair, there are changes to the agenda. We have an added communication item 4.1, which is correspondence from Fiona Periscandalo respecting item 9.2. The recommendation is that be received and referred to the consideration of that item. We have an added delegation request from Robert Cook from Ontario Waste Management Association respecting an endorsement of the City of St. Catharines resolution on development approval requirements for landfills, Bill 197, and that is for a future meeting. We have an added discussion item, 9.4, respecting Canada Healthy Communities Initiative, Intake 1. We also have an added notice of motion, Green Acres Park pedestrian pathway replacement and sidewalk repairs on Valley Drive, Felker Crescent, and Faircourt Drive in Hamilton. And I've just been advised as well that there is an additional notice of motion, item 11.2, respecting a toboggan location for Huckleberry Drive and Lake Avenue.
Okay, thank you. May I please have a mover and a seconder to approve the agenda as amended? Moved by Councillor Pearson, seconded by Councillor Jackson. And we will need, is there any discussion on the agenda? We'll need an electronic vote. It'll be up momentarily. I'm going to get my cursor over there. Councillor Ferguson, are you able to vote? Or give me a thumbs up.
It's telling me it's loading. Please wait. Well, there it is. It's up now.
Okay. Great. And that passes 10-0. Councillor Farr, I see that you've joined us. Nice to have you here. Are there any declarations of interest? Seeing none, may I please have a mover and a seconder to approve the minutes of the February 1st meeting? Moved by Councillor Pauls, seconded by Councillor Nan. Councillor Nan. Is there any discussion on the minutes? I don't see any. We'll need an electronic vote on that too. It's on the screen. And that carries 10. Thank you. And we're on to communications. 4.1 is correspondence from Fiona. I'm sorry, Fiona. I'm probably gonna just damage your name here. Parascandalo. Parascandalo. Does that sound right? Respecting item 9.2, City of Hamilton Cemetery Bylaw Update, which is report PW 21005. The recommendation is that that this be received and referred to the consideration of item 9.2, the City of Hamilton Cemetery Bylaw Update, which will be later in the agenda. May I please have a mover and seconder to receive and refer the correspondence from Fiona respecting item 9.2. Moved by Councillor Danko, seconded by Councillor Farr. Did you want to speak to it, Councillor Farr? Moved by Councillor Danko and seconded by Councillor Farr. Is there any discussion? The vote's on your screen. Councillor Pauls, were you able to vote? And the vote is closed and it carries 10-0. Thank you. And I have a delegation request from Jeff Anderson Bourne and Ed Reese, Council of Canadians, respecting solar retrofitting of public buildings in Hamilton. And this is for today's meeting.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair.
Well, no, you can't go ahead yet, sir. We have to approve. So,
sorry.
no problem. No problem. Happy to hear from you, but at the right time. Thank you. And 5.2 is a delegation request from Robert Cook, Ontario Waste Management Association, respecting an endorsement of the City of St. Catharines resolution on development approval requirements for landfills. And that is for a future meeting. May I please have a mover and seconder to approve the delegation requests as listed in items 5.1 and 5.2. Moved by Councillor Ferguson, seconded by Councillor Marula. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, it will require an electronic vote. On your screen now, or it should be. And that carries 10-0. We have a consent item, number 6.1. It's the interview subcommittee to the Public Works Committee minutes, February 19th, 2021. May I please have a mover and seconder to receive item 6.1, moved by Councillor Nan, seconded by Councillor Pauls. And is there any discussion? I don't see any, so we will require an electronic vote. Please check your screen. And that carries 10-0. So now we are at public hearings, written delegations, and virtual delegations. And members are reminded that questions of the delegations are for clarification purposes only and not for debate. Jeff Anderson, is that how you pronounce your last name? Anderson
yes.
Bourne. And
Yes.
Ed Reese, Council of Canadians respecting, I'll remind you, solar retrofitting of public buildings in Hamilton. And Jeff, I'll call upon you now. You have 5 minutes and I will be timing you.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and good afternoon, everybody. My name is Jeff Anderson Bourne. I'm here today with my colleague Ed Reese, and on behalf of the Hamilton chapter of Council of Canadians, we'd like to thank the members of the Public Works Committee for giving us the opportunity to talk to you today about a strategy we'd like the committee to consider, by which the city can meet the climate emergency and at the same time save money and create local jobs. This can be done by expanding the local installation of renewable energy sources, specifically solar panels placed on municipal buildings. Cities are starting to realize that the shift to renewable energy can be a huge financial boon for the municipality. All money spent on gas and oil leave Ontario. This is a powerful argument for Hamilton to generate renewable energy right here. The money stays in the community, especially if it is small-scale energy production such as solar panels on homes, businesses, and municipally owned buildings. This generates local jobs that pay well and likely will mean more taxes collected by the municipality. Given that Hamilton is examining a new community energy plan for the city, there's an opportunity here to expand local solar power energy production. For example, the city can suggest and provide subsidies for the installation of solar panels or solar water heating systems in new buildings, both municipal and private. Another opportunity presents itself in regards to the municipal facilities roof replacement program. Given that the city is looking at the replacement of a number of facility roofs over the next few years, it would be possible to plan for the addition of solar panels on these roofs. Structural roofing upgrades may not be necessary, as lower weight panels are now a definite option. Let's look at some of the communities that are already doing what we're proposing that Hamilton does. Halifax established a green municipal fund. Between 2008 2011, the city of Hamilton reduced greenhouse gas emissions by more than 10,000 tons per year through a combination of energy efficient retrofits and more efficient building designs. In 2009, the city created a sustainable building fund to redirect energy cost savings from these initiatives toward funding for future projects. Since then, the fund's annual general energy savings deposits have grown from 350,000 to over 750,000. That's a lot of money. Let's move now to Alberta. Alberta implemented a microgeneration program for individuals and small business, which is off the grid. And they did this in partnership with a community generation program where energy is sold back to the grid. Red Deer took advantage of it, and Red Deer College, and installed a 1.6 megawatt solar system, the largest on any post-secondary institution in Canada. So Alberta is not just about oil and gas anymore. Let's look at Kingston. Kingston instituted a system called net metering, which allows the city to send electricity generated from renewable energy technologies for a credit, reducing electricity costs. Excess generation credits can be carried forward for a consecutive 12-month period to offset future electricity costs. Toronto and Vancouver have both set very ambitious targets for emissions reductions. Toronto, for example, is requiring that 75% of energy must come from renewable or low carbon sources by 2050. And their high performance new construction programs offers incentives to make buildings more energy efficient. In Vancouver, regulations require carbon pollution limits that will decrease over time to encourage builders and designers to plan towards zero emissions. So that's their goal. Very ambitious. To conclude, council can meet the climate emergency, save money, generate jobs locally, and move Hamilton in the direction of becoming a Green New Deal community by adopting this strategy. Specifically, we ask that council direct city staff to identify all possibilities for installation of solar panels on municipal buildings, especially as roof repair and replacement occurs, and bring back recommendations to council that identify initial costs, payback times, and any significant risk to installation. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, and you're well below your 5 minutes. Thank you. Okay, and are there any questions of Jeff or Ed? Councillor Pearson. Oh, do you have a list? Oh, sorry, I'm sorry. Councillor Pearson, Councillor Danko was ahead of you, and I just
That's
didn't.
no other problem.
Councillor Danko.
Actually, Madam Chair, my question would be a follow-up to staff. So if Councillor Pearson has a question for the presenter, she will go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Danko. Councillor Pearson.
Thank you, and mine might end up being a follow-up to staff as well after. But Jeff, thank you for your information and review of this. My question to you, and I just want to ask, and the reason I'm asking is, there has to be capacity in the system for the solar panels to be installed. And the reason I say that is I've had many residents in my ward over the years that have wanted to install solar panels on their homes, but unfortunately we don't have the capacity. I'm going to say, I know in my area, we don't have the capacity in the grid, in the system to feed back into it. So have you also had a look at that and what's going on in different areas of the city?
Well, the focus of our proposal is municipal buildings. I know private buildings, of course, the more we can do this, the better. So we'd have to look into the that part of it. We just haven't got that far. Like what we're trying to do is this is a big initiative, and so as a starting point, we felt that municipally owned buildings would be the first step. Then, as we move from step to step to expand it to new developments and existing homes and existing businesses, then we would have to look at those kinds of questions.
Yeah, no, and I appreciate it. I just wondered whether it also has been reviewed in fact, and possibly where some of the city buildings that you're referring to may also be affected by that. So I appreciate that you understand that, you know, it may not only be that we want to do it, but we may not be able to, but I certainly leave it to staff and in certainly the good suggestions and ideas that you've presented today. Thank you.
Absolutely, it's where possible. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. And so, Councillor Pearson, did you want to continue and go to staff, or do you want to come back after Councillor Danko?
I think I've answered it on my own in the roundabout way. So thank you. I'm fine.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Danko, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor, and appreciate the presentation and the initiative. I think something certainly that I support personally. I do see that Tom Chessman, who's the VP of Hamilton Renewable Power, is in the meeting. I'm wondering, Madam Chair, if I could ask him to maybe give an overview of some of the work that Hamilton Renewable Power Inc. is doing on this file.
Thank you, Councillor Danko. Tom?
Sure. Through Madam Chair, thanks for the opportunity to speak on this. And that's my second job title. My first job title is Manager of Energy Initiatives at the City of Hamilton as well. So that's the one that pays my paycheck. But the solar story is, I agree with the presenter. It's a viable opportunity in general. The city did look at that, and actually when I started in 2010, that was one of the first things that we looked at. The municipal buildings had a rooftop potential of about 2 megawatts. That's by looking at the roof space that was available in general. And we proceeded to work with the utility as a partner to provide solar projects as part of that initiative. And unfortunately, when we got down to the structural analysis and the structural capacity, a lot of those roofs had to be discounted. They needed major structural support, and those projects fell off. So out of that effort and the hopes of getting up to 2 megawatts of potential, we did end up with one project at 330 Wentworth for 250 kilowatts. And those projects were part of a process that were in the feed-in tariff regime. So when you were installing a project, you did have to ensure you had capacity, like the councillor suggested. You need capacity to feed into the grid and have that capacity at the local feeder. So that was a checkpoint as well, and a limiting factor in a few projects. But it did pay you, and it has paid basically for production of solar energy into the grid. The new regime now, as a presenter pointed out, although I think you said it was net metering that was brought forth in Kingston, it's actually available provincially. So anywhere in the province, you can put in a solar system and you are maxed out at your annual consumption for that meter. So that's an option that's available to us in Hamilton, but it does limit the capacity of the solar system, the solar PV system that you're looking at, because you wouldn't want to oversize it and produce energy beyond what your needs are at that site. So that actually helps address the feeder issue. And the last thing I wanted to say, I'm glad you mentioned about the other communities and other areas in the country. The other qualifier I will state is Alberta's doing some really good stuff right now. Of course, their grid is very much more carbon intensive than ours. So for GHG emissions, for instance, they will get a much bigger benefit with a solar installation than we would in Ontario, because our provincial grid is that much greener. And so when we're looking at emission reduction and we're looking at limited funds, we may look at solar as a potential, and we do have a couple of projects we would like to come back to the council with. on a couple of arenas, in fact. But there may be other projects that reduce more emissions and might draw our limited funds to those other projects. So it's an interesting dilemma now when we're looking at emission reduction as a priority. I'll stop there.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Councillor Danko.
Thank you, Tom. 2 points that I just wanted to follow up there with staff. The first was that net energy, so you can't produce more with solar than you use. So I remember having a discussion about this at Hamilton Renewable Power, and that really restrains the financial impetus to go forward with one of these systems, because you can't max out your roof space to actually make money if you're limited to only what you use. So maybe if I could just get a little bit more clarification from Tom, just on the financial component of that, and that's a provincial regulation that limits that.
Sure. Through Madam Chair, yeah, to that point. So if you had a home and you used 1,000 kilowatt hours in a year, you would be that would suggest that your solar system you want to put in on your home, let's say, would be capped at that 1,000 kilowatt hours. So if you're looking at a commercial building or a city building, the same kind of rules would apply. I think for larger buildings that have much larger loads, the other limiting factor would be roof space. You would probably run out of roof space before you would get up to that annual volume for a much bigger higher consuming building. So that's the other factor with the larger energy consuming sites.
Thank you, Tom. Councillor.
Thank you. And just the last part there, Tom already touched on it about the structural component. I was wondering if Director Vanderwind was in the meeting, but I didn't see him because I had a question about building code. Perhaps I could direct that to Director or General Manager McKinnon. So my understanding is when we implement a solar system, that requires a building code, a permit to do that through the building code, which then means that you have to bring up that roof system to the current standard. Am I remembering that correct? I don't know if you have that answer, GM McKinnon, or maybe Tom.
I'll defer to Tom. I would be guessing at the answer. I think I know what it is, but maybe Tom might be better informed than I.
Tom, it's all yours.
Through you, Madam Chair, I can answer part of that, and it speaks to the capacity, and I think the presenter touched on that point about solar panels becoming lighter. There was a thin film available, and that proved to be not as productive as we would have liked to seen, but the typical numbers that I've looked at for roof capacity, and doesn't directly answer your question, Councillor, but just so out of interest, we're looking at a roughly 3 to 4 pounds per square foot of capacity on a roof, and the bylaws had changed, I think around 2005, 2006. And to accommodate local snow load calculations as opposed to using provincial numbers. So as to your question about touching a roof and meeting code, I'm not going to touch that one. Sorry.
I'll perhaps answer my own question. So my understanding is that when the Ontario Building Code changed the provisions for snow loading, it basically doubled the calculated snow load that you're going to apply to new builds. So existing structures don't meet that right now. So when you're going in to make improvements that require a permit, then if you have to bring that up to current standards, the roof that's there already doesn't meet the new standard for snow load, which means the load from a solar panel is almost negligible, but it's the difference in the snow load that makes it the structural capacity increase necessary. And obviously, if you're looking at like an arena, something like that, it is no simple thing to increase, to nearly double the snow loading capacity for a roof like that, whether it has solar panels on it or not. And the other component of that is on a flat roof where you have solar panels that are on an angle, and increase the drifting capacity calculations. So there can be significant changes. It's not just the weight of the panel; it's more so the snow loading. can be a problem, especially on large roofs. But something that obviously as a city, we've already, we're in the process of looking at where this can be feasible, and it definitely plays a part into our climate change plans for the future. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Are there any more questions for the presenter? Councillor Ferguson?
Yeah, just a question for Jeff. Jeff, about 10 years ago, there was a movement, particularly in Hamilton. I saw a lot of them in rural areas to install these solar collectors that would follow the sun through the day. And I recall they needed about 70 cents per kilowatt hour to justify it. And OPG was then charging its customers somewhere, it's pretty much the same, somewhere around 10 cents, depending what the time of day is. So it was a big losing matter. If you're paying 70 cents to buy it and reselling it for 10 cents, has that changed in the last 10 years? Because you don't see these panels going up anymore.
There have been changes. Now that when you mentioned the rural area, it reminded me of one spot that I haven't included in the report yet, and that's Vulcan, Alberta, where they have apparently the largest solar farm in the country. And so somehow they're making it work. So I don't know the cost, how the costs compare now to 10 years ago. That would have to be part of the investigation. But in general, we understood when we came to present to you that there are issues with different buildings, that it doesn't work the same everywhere. But that to me speaks to the need to look at what other municipalities are doing in order to overcome some of these challenges. So what is it Halifax is doing that's making it possible for them where there may be challenges for us? It's a great opportunity to see how other people are making it work. But no, I don't have the specific answer to your question about the amount of money for the rural.
Okay, okay. That's all I have, Madam Chairman. Do you want me to move to receive if I'm
That would be great. I need a mover and a seconder to receive the delegation. So moved by Councillor Ferguson, seconded by Councillor Pearson. And electronic, and it'll be on your screen right now. And that passes unanimously. Thank you. And thank you, Jeff, to you and Ed for coming in. Appreciate your presentation. Okay, staff presentations. We're at item 8.1, Corporate Energy and Sustainability Policy. That is Public Works Report 14050. And I'd like to call on Tom Chessman to present.
Just get this set up. 1 second, please. And can everybody see that slide?
We can.
Great. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for the opportunity to make the presentation to you today. Councillors, I'm pleased to bring forward the next iteration of the corporate energy and now rebranded corporate energy and sustainability policy. Today, I just wanted to touch on a few of the highlights of that in these slides and look forward to your questions. And that was a good primer on the discussion we just had. So as a background, the first corporate energy policy was brought to bear in 2007. This policy speaks to the energy intensity targets, and those were for 2020, 2030, and 2050. And many of the initial policy actions spoke to life cycle analysis for major projects and energy-related equipment, and of course the annual reporting requirement that went along with that. And just as a trip down memory lane, back then it was mentioned in the council report the issue of the time was peak oil. So I thought that was kind of interesting how things have changed. In 2008, following the following year from the initial corporate energy policy was a commodity policy, and that, of course, is linked to finance and speaks to numerous approvals around buying and transacting on energy contracts, hedging options, supplier agreements, and adhering, of course, to the Municipal Act. So all of these details reported on annually through audit, finance, and admin. Then in 2014, we combined the commodity and corporate energy policy as part of a regular 4 or 5 year cycle to update these. And so again, those the GHG targets were incorporated, and back then the 2050 GHG target was 80% reduction by 2050. So then today, like I said, we're presenting, it's new, I guess it's revised, so maybe be another way of putting it, our corporate energy and sustainability policy. And sustainability really speaks to how we manage energy and how we manage emissions. So I just wanted to really put forward this really simple graphic, just to remind everybody that when we use energy, we generally create emissions, and this has never really changed. When we generate renewable energy, like we were talking about solar, obviously there's low or no emissions from that type of energy. But in the essence of this policy, of course, we are trying to lower our energy and emissions. And the main message here to do that with energy and sustainability focus, really we want to manage energy and manage our emissions together. Emissions have always been connected and always been part of this process that we've always been doing for a long time. We just haven't labeled it as such. So when we sustainably manage our energy and emissions, one of the key themes to keep in mind is efficiency first. So using less to meet our existing needs. So I'm going to get into a little bit more details also on our GHG emissions a little bit later. So how does it all fit together? There's lots going on right now. Many activities and plans being developed and rolled out. The climate change emergency has certainly led to a number of internal reviews and discussions, and reports are provided through Healthy and Safe Communities by Trevor Imhoff. And there's an ongoing cycle that you've already seen some of those reports, and there'll be more coming forward. Already in progress is the Community Energy and Emissions Plan, and that's being led by Christine Newbold in Planning and ECDEV. And that particular report and body of work is expected to come before you in Q3 at this point. So the community piece speaks to, while the title is Community Energy and Emissions, it does speak to corporate and it does speak to community as well in that particular effort. So today we're talking about the corporate energy and sustainability policy. So that's the city's own assets and operations. But of course, there's other work going on with the Public Works Climate Resiliency Program, and that's being led by Arlen Leeming. And that too has been brought forward in some of the other recent presentations. And I just wanted to remind the committee that when Public Works is focusing on and addressing climate change, we're really referring to 5 key areas, and those are flooding, water quality, invasive species, species at risk, and of course, last but not least, managing the greenhouse gas emissions themselves. So just to summarize, these things all do fit together. There's lots of different activities going on by different groups in the city. And just to reiterate the policy and action framework, at a high level, we are, all of these efforts are guided by the climate change emergency. The Community Energy and Emission Plan covers off the corporate and community plans and strategies, as I suggested, and you will get an update on that later this year. Specifics on the community plans and strategies will be addressed separately, but again, we're focusing on corporate today, and the key areas of the city assets include fleet, that part includes transit, of course, corporate buildings, and water and wastewater. Now, those three portfolios represent 92% of our GHG emissions. So this breakdown, I think you may have seen this before, but it just highlights the portfolios and the emissions related to those portfolios, and obviously why we're targeting fleet, buildings, and water and wastewater as the top three, because they do garner and generate 92% of those emissions. So fleets at 49%, buildings are at 31%, and the water wastewater combination is at 12%. So those are the broader portfolios, and more specifically on this slide is the source of those emissions, if you will. So we're focusing on these opportunities in these areas and managing our emissions, and we can manage our emissions by looking at diesel, unleaded gasoline, and natural gas usage. The electricity is fairly green right now, but you can see the big chunks of this pie are those particular categories, again, namely diesel, gasoline, and natural gas. So this frames our actions and shows us our path to meet our targets. So speaking of targets, this policy, what we would like to do is, as indicated, take that 80% emission reduction target by 2050 and update that to 100% or net zero by 2050. So I think that's been discussed in the climate change emergency and some of the other discussions that have occurred. And this policy would then make it official for the corporate target to be updated to 100%. So this reflects discussions with, like I said, the climate change emergency, and has been informed by activity with the climate community energy and emissions plan, stakeholder sessions, and general consensus of many Canadian municipalities. So currently our official reporting has our corporate emissions at 42% reduction at this point. The other target that's there is is the energy intensity, and the energy intensity refers to energy use per square foot, and so that speaks to buildings and built space. And whereas there is energy use that's going on in water and wastewater operations or even street lighting, but that energy is not tied to a square footage per se in a conditioned space. So our energy intensity really focuses on how we're doing in our corporate building portfolio. And the other thing I'll add is energy intensity actually is a combination of natural gas and electricity. So that's converts natural gas to equivalent kilowatt hours, if you will. And the bottom line is, when we see that energy intensity getting better, we are seeing electricity and natural gas reduction occur. So our current energy intensity is a 25% reduction, and both the greenhouse gas and the energy intensity do have a base year of 2005, and that hasn't changed. And that too is typical and common for many municipalities to use that as a base year. So as mentioned previously, our mantra is efficiency first, and it's not just us. Many industry experts suggest this is a good way to prioritize our activities. And the best example I like to give is we wouldn't want to jump to renewable energy opportunities when we have a leaky old building. So rushing to solar panel installations on a leaky old building that wastes energy would be very much counterproductive, and we'd want to make sure that our buildings efficient as possible before we look at renewable energy. So this applies to operations as well. It's just the building's a better example. So we focus on efficiency first. When we have our operation or our building as efficient as we can, then we're looking at these renewable energy opportunities. And basically, once we have addressed the efficiency, looked at renewable energy to try to offset anything else that's being used at the building, there may be an incremental energy that's still being used that we haven't been able to capture. And so that last option we're calling renewable energy credits. And of course, that's always an option, but it's usually an option that we want to consider before after we pursued the other two ahead of us. So So going forward, we will start off to basically recall. I just wanted to back up a bit and speak to the fact that we do produce our own renewable natural gas. And going forward, we'll start to offset what remaining natural gas we do consume with our own renewable natural gas. So this is a separate strategy that's being developed to assign that limited renewable energy and assign it to buildings and perhaps transit as we go forward in a go forward strategy. So that's a really great example of a homegrown circular economy. We have all of these assets and pieces in place, and I look forward to seeing that develop as a opportunity going down the road. So I'm not a big bowler, but I really love it when I go bowling that the bumpers come out. And I don't know, I just really felt that this bumper analogy really helps us recognize the power of policy. So policy is the bumpers on the bowling lane. We're all aiming to get those targets and get our efficiency and our emission reduction targets achieved. And this policy guides us and makes sure we're as successful as possible. So the actions that are being done by city departments are what is supposed to deliver the results across the city. So just a reminder, each of the groups in the city own this policy. It's not just me. It's not just the energy team. All departments are stewards in our emissions reduction targets going forward. So the policy really frames up the targets and prioritize these areas of focus across city operations. So the areas of focus, as the previous pie charts were suggesting, that really will have a key impact across the departments and divisions. Start certainly with transit and transit and fleet know they can reduce their diesel emissions and manage existing CNG emissions. Those are very very visible and very much straightforward results. And fleet, of course, is developing a green fleet plan. And the Green Fleet Plan is set to come to you in, I believe, another month, 4 to 6 weeks. And that Green Fleet Plan will ensure that low emission decisions will be based on all those decisions around vehicle purchases. So there's activity going on with fleet, with transit. And in terms of renewable energy, without being too redundant from our discussion earlier in the meeting, renewable energy will continue to be produced through Hamilton Renewable Power. So we have the operations located at Woodward at the water and wastewater plant and at the Glanbrook landfill. So that represents 4.8 megawatts of renewable electricity that's being produced and has been for some time. I mentioned renewable natural gas operations, and that will continue. That currently is also at Woodward, and that'll continue and possibly expand depending on how those operations may change down at Woodward in terms of the generation and whatnot. The ongoing assessment for solar PV, solar photovoltaic on rooftops, it's been assessed pretty extensively a number of years ago. We still have 2 candidate arenas, Harry Howell Arena and Morgan Firestone. And Harry Howell Arena in particular is a great example because it's a relatively new arena. It was built to LEED standards. We've met our efficiency first criteria, if you will. And so that particular project we had hoped was going to get done on the back in the time when the feed-in tariff was going, and our utility partners didn't quite get that project approved in time. The FIT program ended, and we definitely want to target those 2 arenas, Morgan Firestone and Harry Howell Arena, as candidates for rooftop solar projects. So look for that as we bring that back to you in the near future, in the next 2 months. So that's the solar PV. So that leaves us with buildings and building retrofits. And because as that pie chart indicated, there's a lot of emissions that come from emissions related to buildings. So certainly new standards that need to be considered for new construction include LEED, but there is a bracket and sort of some new language that's being introduced inside LEED and inside the new policy or new design policy, if you will. So one of these new terms you may have heard of before is called embodied carbon. And so embodied carbon speaks to not just operating carbon, which is what we emit to run a building and run, say, boilers or heating equipment, but embodied carbon speaks to the carbon that's in typically the major building materials, and I'm speaking to cement and steel. And so going forward, the new designs will call for an assessment of the carbon intensity of the building materials. Like I said, that's in the latest version of LEED. So when we're considering building new buildings, we've got in the policy that we consider LEED. LEED-like is still an option, but when we consider LEED, you may very well start to hear about embodied carbon, and I just wanted you to hear that that is being something that's going to be have to be embraced in the future going forward. The city's pursued passive house, which is great, and net zero building design is another relatively new design standard that's becoming very much in the forefront, and very likely what we need to do with new buildings coming down the forefront. So those are new building designs, if you will, and our existing buildings will also need to continually be upgraded and retrofitted, and that will need to be balanced out as we go forward as well, and looking at heat recovery and optimizing emissions as part of our regular process. So last, I'll speak to water and wastewater. And you'll recall that again on that pie chart, they represent a relatively small amount of emissions. And interesting enough, they're the single largest electricity consumer in the city's corporate portfolio. So it just highlights that fact that electricity is a lot quote unquote greener, and at this point in time they're not a large natural gas user, if you will. So they're still pretty significant, and they're very active in managing energy use throughout the system, looking at emissions and energy as they go forward. And certainly they are a key group, and really enjoy working with them on the renewable energy opportunities that currently exist, and as we go forward may exist in the future. So Hamilton Water plays a key part as well, and an area of focus as we go forward. Okay, so another aspect of the energy policy is speaks to reporting and other generic activities, if you will. So each year we do the annual energy report, and just as a reminder, the timing for that is typically coming out in Q2. This comes out in Q2 because we actually haven't vetted our December data until approximately this time of the year, around mid to late February. We've done our quality checks on the December data, and then we go through a check through the budgeting process. Our reports are generally written in March. Maybe this year it might be a little bit later due to COVID and a bunch of other issues. But typically you see the annual energy report in the May-June timeline. So that reporting is to continue, and that gives you the annual updates as to how we're doing. So those activities will continue on the annual energy report. Separately, I mentioned earlier the commodity report, and again, that's more closely linked to finance and is something that goes through audit, finance, and admin. And again, that outlines our financial commitments on our energy supply and contracts according to the Municipal Act. What you may not be as familiar with is the province does require submission of a broader public survey, and this outlines all public entities' energy and emissions data by building. So not just for the City of Hamilton, for other municipalities and other groups as well. So that's something that goes on. Then there's the ongoing vigilance that occurs on the regulatory front. So lots of regulatory changes continue to be addressed, such as energy rate class assessment, carbon taxes, global adjustment charges, commodity charges, and other opportunities there. On any given day, we're managing in the energy office natural gas balances, storage and pipeline contract parameters, renewable energy production, and billings for just about 2,000 utility meters. So as the market evolves, we certainly will continue to work with staff, including transit with the compressed natural gas and RNG options and lowering remaining emissions. We certainly act as a resource for the different groups like transit, like fleet on fuel contracting and vehicle assessments and life cycle assessments. And we enjoyed being part of the Green Fleet program development as that's going forward. And of course, a very close relationship with building operations staff on various building systems, and of course water operations staff with efficiency projects, supports and incentives. So the energy initiative section does prepare the annual energy and commodity reports. We do implement energy related projects. We operate renewable energy assets and purchasing of energy. Each of the energy departments, however, are responsible for their own energy budgets and implementing their own actions to meet the targets outlined in the policy. So this is the last slide, and I need a drink of water. So this journey started with our 2005 baseline at approximately 130,000 tons of GHGs. Our 2018 emissions were at 73,600 tons. Our 2030 target is 65,000 tons for our corporate emissions. So we can make big strides with a focus on those key portfolios. Removing the diesel buses to low emission bus options could potentially reduce our emissions by 10,000 tons. Very significant. Fleet vehicles, as I said, will be looking at other options through the Green Fleet policy and program coming forward. Efficiency in buildings will play a really big role as well. That's a big part of that emissions pie, the corporate buildings. So, as I said, some of those existing emissions can be offset with renewable natural gas. I think this might be a growing opportunity. And I already spoke to Hamilton Renewable Power and its role in generating the renewable electricity. And these renewable energy operations are managed by the energy team with regard to O&M contracts, supply agreements, and overall performance. And these other opportunities as we go forward will be embraced and planned for and brought back before you for consideration. But in summary, we can move forward towards our targets with a focus on efficiency first, renewable energy, and renewable energy credits. Our pathway has many options for us to take advantage of as technology and regulatory opportunity emerges. And to say this another way, our net zero target will very likely have to rely on technology that is not currently available. But the corporate energy and sustainable policy is one tool that will guide the city as we move towards these targets. And that is that.
Thank you, Tom. That was quite an in-depth presentation.
Would you like me to stop sharing this right now?
I would, and then I can see the councillors and I'll know who is asking to talk to you. Councillor Jackson, you are first on the list.
Thanks, Madam Chair Vanderbeek and Manager Chessman. Excellent presentation. It's obviously what I'm going to allude to is different infrastructure, but I want to state it for the public record. I had a citizens committee 5 years ago along Mountain Brow Boulevard, Tom, that worked closely with city staff, manager Mike Field, and very proud of the fact for members of council, in case they weren't aware, that the Mountain Brow Boulevard from the Kenilworth access all the way over to Mohawk Road is, to my knowledge, the only residential street in Hamilton that has solar panels dotted along the transformed Mountain Brow Boulevard. And a 25-member citizen committee at that time, Madam Chair, came together as part of a $5 million reconstruction project of the Brow, had solar panels, very proud of that. So my long preamble to Tom, and if it's one of those to take away, take under advisement, you spoke mostly about fleet and buildings. I'm just wondering, in collaboration with another division of Public Works, is there an opportunity to look at doing more street lighting with solar panels, similar, Madam Chair, to what we did on Mountain Brow Boulevard, that quite frankly has won an award as well? Through you, Chair Vanderbeek, please.
Tom?
Through Madam Chair, yeah, that project was a great project, and thanks for reminding about the award that was given. I think the street lighting project that was done and the conversion to LED across the city was also a major project that has been highlighted in our annual energy reports and other discussions, and those efforts have resulted in an asset that lasts much longer, uses much less energy, and has a great story. So working with other groups is absolutely welcome to do that. I would also just add that with a focus on emission reduction, it will be really good for us to assess what those opportunities are, and electricity reduction is going to be considered. But we may find going forward that we might want to do a boiler retrofit that uses natural gas versus an electricity reduction project, because there's more emissions that come from that boiler retrofit. So it's another lens that we may start to shift priorities in projects to bring forward to you to approve those types of projects going forward.
Thank you, Manager Chessman. And I didn't mean to discount either the great conversions you've done across the city with LED lighting as well, but I'll leave that to other colleagues of mine in other parts of the city to possibly look at replicating what has just been applauded. And I salute the Citizens Committee that I formed 5-6 years ago. It was entirely their idea, working with staff, to have solar panels along Mountain Brow Boulevard. But overall, Madam Chair, environmentally and reducing GHGs in our city, I think we're absolutely going in the right direction. Thanks, Chair Vanderbeek.
Thank you, Councillor Jackson. Councillor Ferguson, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Tom, welcome back. It's been a while since I've seen one of your presentations. But my question to you is, and I probably expect this question coming from me, to hit the 2030 targets, and I know the 2050 is technology that's not even available yet, but to hit the 2030 targets, there's nothing in your report about costs or savings. To hit those 2030 targets, how much more is it going to cost per kilometer to run an HSR bus? How much more per square foot is it going to cost to operate our buildings, or to build or put a new build up in order to meet those targets? And just so we know what we're buying.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sure. Through Madam Chair, great question, Councillor. The business case that also looks at not just costs but emission reductions can sometimes be at odds, if you will, with your traditional business case. But let's just break that down, and maybe Debbie can help support me on the transit side. But I believe that there's some pretty good numbers that speak to diesel buses versus CNG buses. And I know we don't have specific data in Hamilton on electric buses, but I believe they operate roughly the same cost per kilometer is what I have heard. I'm not going to stake a lot on that, but that's what my understanding is that on a cost per kilometer basis, an electric bus might operate around the same cost per kilometer. Now you need a lot of infrastructure.
Or diesel to natural gas.
Yeah, that diesel Debbie, do you have those numbers top of mind, or do you want me to use the numbers from?
But she's retiring. She don't care anymore.
Who retires at 30 years old anyway? So.
I know. That's what I sent her an email, asked her the same question.
So through the chair to the councillor, thank you very much, everybody. Anyways, as far as the cost, so a diesel bus, approximately 54 cents per kilometer. CNG is at 17 cents per kilometer. Is what
and
we,
that includes
the
expensive. That includes expensive compressors, in, does it? The construction and operating of those compressors.
So that's. No. So that's the cost of the actual compressed natural gas and the cost of the diesel.
If I could jump in through the chair on that one as well, I think what's difficult to compare when you talk about the compressors, councillor, is what's the apples to apples comparison, and you'd want to look at the cost of the diesel fuel tanks and the diesel fuel dispensers to compare the cost of the compressors as well. There's sort of infrastructure in one, but not in the other. So just on the operating of the bus themselves, you're going to see that lower cost. No question, there's going to be infrastructure required to charge buses, and there's infrastructure required to compress that natural gas. Absolutely. Don't want to pretend that doesn't exist, but on the operating piece that you answered, that you asked, I mean, those are some of the numbers for buildings. I think we definitely have it's not as easy an answer on our corporate buildings. There's every building's so very different. But where I think that there is some opportunities is where we have a district energy system, to leverage the district energy system to get even greener and more efficient. So I think there's some interesting opportunities that might emerge going forward down the road in certain parts of the city that can connect to that. But buildings are definitely a big challenge. How are we going to get the heat required for domestic hot water and for regular space heating, and do that at a competitive price? I think that's a very good question, Councillor.
Because, it's one thing that worries me with our council, with our city, is that cost is not a major issue. It's other stuff that takes priority, and I'm sensing that as we go through the months. But we need to always have that balance, and I see this report with no cost numbers. Now, Debbie's number on the natural gas is huge, and however, I remember in 2012, HSR said they're going back to diesel buses because the capital cost of the compressors and the electricity to run them made it cheaper to go to diesel. So I just want to make sure we know exactly what we're buying again. And
through the chair, if I could say one more thing, if that's okay, Madam Chair.
I think Rome wants to jump in too.
I'm watching Rome with his hand up and wanting to wave. I see Rome.
To my boss. I just want to squeeze in, though, the community energy and emissions plan does have a cost scenario, and that information will be very informative to your question, Councillor Ferguson, about what's this going to cost to get to net zero by 2050. That will come out of the community energy and emissions plan in Q3. Go ahead, Rome.
Thank you, Tom. Rome?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Rome D'Angelo, Director of Energy Fleet and Facilities. I think today it's about bringing a policy for a framework for staff to work with. And when you look at the program departments and how they deliver their programs, it's really looking through the lens of energy and sustainability. And when Tom put the picture of the bowling alley, it's exactly that. The bowling alley is a targets, and the bumpers keeps the ball in play, which means that each program department has a responsibility to look through the lens of energy and sustainability. And this policy really directs the framework for them. So when you talk about facilities or you talk about fleet, it's on a case-by-case basis. Tom mentioned that our fleet, green fleet policy will be coming in the next month to 2 months, identifying the inventory of fleet that we have in our central fleet services, and the opportunities that we're going to bring forward from electric vehicles to natural gas conversions. And the same goes for our retrofits, our life cycle renewal projects, and our new construction. So those are dealt with on a case-by-case basis, and we would bring forward to council the conventional way of constructing a building versus a lead opportunity and what those premiums are. So today's report is not about dollars and cents. It's really guiding and creating that framework for various program departments that they look at through the lens of energy savings and sustainability.
Okay, and but that's always what scares me, Rome, is today is about setting standards. But come 2023, you're going to be saying to us, well, back on February 19th, you approved this policy, and that's haunted me for my 12 years on council. The climate emergency, that must come back at us regularly, and people try to amend it on the fly too. But I just want to make sure we have a clear understanding that we're setting these goals, but we got to pay the bills too. And I just want the balance. I want to see both. How much extra is it costing us? And I thought it was omitted from that report today. And I'm not trying to be critical. I hear what you're saying. But generally, we set these standards or these goals. 4 years from now, you come back with a building that meets all those requirements, but the costs are way up. And you said, why you approved that back on February 19th, 2021? So I've said my piece. It just worries me.
Thank you, Councillor. GM McKinnon would like to say something, I think.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. And never want to miss an opportunity to haunt Councillor Ferguson, but I think some of the information we heard today was really kind of illustrates where we are. That in one hand, by going to natural gas for the HSR fleet, it's great for the climate, and it's great for our pocketbook. 17 cents a kilometer versus 53 over diesel. The conversation about solar panels, you're going to pay a premium for solar panels, and there's limitations where you can put them. And so I guess the point that I'm making is it's really difficult to nail this down. I understand your concern, Councillor Ferguson, but it really is difficult to nail down because of those. That's kind of the opposite ends, the bookends of this issue, where there will be, as Tom referred to, technologies that come forward that may make being energy efficient more financially viable, and then other places where we may have to pay a premium to be more energy efficient. So I know that Tom keeps an eyeball on this thing on a regular basis, and we're hearing your concerns, and we'll make sure that as much as possible we can try to articulate the cost benefit to any of these projects coming forward.
Okay, that's all.
Thank you. I see no further speakers. And so could I please have a motion, a mover and a seconder to receive the presentation? Moved by Councillor Pearson, seconded by Councillor Ferguson to receive it. Thank you. And that will require an electronic vote. Should be on your screen momentarily. Councillor Nan, are you able to vote? Did you vote? We're good. That carries unanimously. And on the report, may I please have a mover and seconder to approve the recommendations in the report? Moved by Councillor Danko, seconded by Councillor Pearson. And is there any discussion on the report? Or are you satisfied? I see no hands in the air, so the vote is on your screen. And that is to accept the report. And we're on item 8.1 for anyone who's just joined us, and that carries unanimously. Thank you. So now we are on item 9.1, which is a discussion item. Upper Gage Avenue between Rymel Road East and Stone Church Road East, roadway safety audit update. I'm just coming to you. Councillor Jackson, did you want to introduce this? Then please go ahead.
Could I please, Madam Chair?
Absolutely.
Thank you, Madam Chair. before I have my questions and comments, would committee indulge that I would like to ask Director Edward Soldo and Manager Mike Field and Superintendent Dave Ferguson, who have authored this report. This is very important. Many members of the community are listening in today. If you recall, they delegated a couple of weeks ago and submitted the petition. I am extremely pleased with the recommendations here today, but I would like Director Soldo to walk us through it. I'll have a couple of questions further that aren't part of today's report that hopefully are still a work in progress, and then some closing comments. Is that fair, Madam Chair, please?
Yes, that would be great, Councillor Jackson. I will call on Director Soldo, and he may want to introduce Mike Field or David Ferguson to come along and help him with the introduction. But Director Soldo, are you available?
Thank you through the chair to the committee. In terms of this report, it's really the hard work that was undertaken by Mike Field's group. So I'm actually going to ask Manager Field to walk through and provide the overview.
Perfect.
Great. Mike? I don't see his name here, but that doesn't mean he's not here. Mike, are you on the line? I wonder if he's had some kind of technical difficulty.
Hi, Mike. This is Alicia Davenport from Clerks. Just letting you know, I do see that you're unmuted, although we cannot hear you. So I'm wondering if it's possible, maybe if you have a headset there, to unplug and replug to see if that works.
Hello?
That's it.
There we go. We got it working?
We've got it working.
Okay, super. My video is not working either, but I was not aware that there was an audio problem too. So my apologies.
Okay, I hope you didn't get too far into your introduction of
No, I
the report. Okay, well, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I'm Mike Field.
Great, go ahead.
Yep, I'm Mike Field, Manager of Transportation Operations in the Transportation Operations Maintenance Division. The report that's in front of you deals with the December motion to conduct a safety audit on Upper Gage Avenue in between Ryamel Road East and Stone Church Road East. And then just briefly, that motion asked for us to examine 5 specific items as part of the audit, and those were speed limit reductions, school zone and community safety zone designations, automated speed enforcement use, red light camera at the Royal Vista intersection, and then physical changes to the roadway itself, to Upper Gage. We completed the audit we started the audit actually in December, and we completed it in early January. And early on, we also deployed some equipment. On December 21st, we installed dynamic speed signs. Those are those photo radar signs on Upper Gage that show drivers what speed they're driving at. And then we also installed pedestrian countdown timers on all of the legs of the intersection of Upper Gage and Royal Vista. I'll just go over the results. There's 4 recommendations in the report, so I'll just talk to them specifically and address the items that we were asked to look at. Upper Gage between Ryamel and Stone Church is an arterial roadway. It has a posted speed limit of 50 kilometers an hour. And when we did our review about reducing the speed limit from 50 to 40 is appropriate, particularly because of the school crossing at Royal Vista, and in recognition of the community's support voiced through their petition, and also the ward councillor's support of the same. The report recommends that we reduce the speed limit on Upper Gage from 50 kilometers an hour to 40 kilometers an hour between Ryamel and Stone Church. That's recommendation A of the report. The local roadways within the Temple Mead neighborhood itself were actually scheduled to be reduced to 40 kilometers an hour, and then 30 kilometers an hour in the Temple Mead school zone itself, and that's through the neighborhood speed reduction project, but that wasn't scheduled until 2022. So in the report, we are recommending advancing the schedule and making those reductions earlier in 2021. And those are recommendations B and C in the report. The Highway Traffic Act regulates the designation of school zones in the province. And unfortunately, Upper Gauge is not eligible under that regulation because it only allows school zones on roadways that directly adjoin or abut the roadways, the entrances and exits in the property for schools themselves. So the Temple Mead Elementary School doesn't actually directly abut Upper Gauge, so it's precluded from being designated based on the Highway Traffic Act. However, we did do a community safety zone evaluation for Upper Gauge using the approved guidelines, and it received a score of 29, which is above the permissible threshold of 25 points. So the recommendation is that we designate Upper Gauge in between Rymal and Stone Church as a community safety zone, and that's recommendation D in the report. Automated speed enforcement, that we have that pilot ongoing in the city. There's 18 locations and a schedule being used that was approved by committee and council. We're kind of feeling if we add more locations, that plan, we would have to re-examine that program and probably have to extend it beyond 12 months. And then if we were to install or operate ASC on Upper Gauge, it wouldn't be there for very long as part of the pilot, maybe only for a 2-week cycle. So what we're doing is we're recommending that we leave the ASC pilot as is, but obviously if ASC is something that council chooses to establish as a permanent program in the future, Upper Gauge could be considered at that time. And one of the permissive things that we have to have in place for ASC usage is a community safety zone. And obviously the recommendation to designate Upper Gauge helps that in the future as well to operate ASC if we want to. And then in 6 years, there's been about 5 collisions. Well, not about, there have been 5 collisions at the Royal Vista and Upper Gauge intersection. And except for the tragic recent fatality, all the other collisions involved only vehicles and were minor in nature, didn't have any injuries associated with them. And when we evaluate Royal Vista against our red light camera program, it ranked relatively low when compared to other intersections in the city. We add about 5 new red light camera locations in a year, and we use that ranking guide to help choose those locations. And because Royal Vista isn't ranking high, we're not recommending that we install a red light camera at that location at this time. And then finally, we're reviewing opportunities for enhancement to the built environment. And what I mean by that are actual reconstruction of Upper Gauge, like the possible removal of the southbound curb lane on Upper Gauge at Stone Church. This kind of work takes a bit more time because we have to do some more in-depth engineering and evaluation. So unfortunately, we couldn't have that work ready for this report. But any outcomes of that work will be brought forward to a future PW committee in the form of any recommendations associated with it. So that's kind of rundown of everything that's within that report and the work that's been done to date, and then also kind of what is coming up next as an output of the original motion.
Thank you, Mike. So are you done?
Yes, thank you.
Wonderful, thank you. And very much appreciated. Is there any discussion, any questions, I mean, about to Mike?
Did I still have the floor, Chair?
Well, I didn't do you as a speaker, but I assumed that you would be wanting to come back, and I hadn't seen any hands. So do you want to speak first, or do you want to speak after?
I just had a couple of further questions of Manager Field, and then I was just going to give some closing comments, Chair Vanderbeek, but I'm at your discretion.
I'm happy to let you go right now, and I did not start any 5 minutes when you were giving your lead up to it. So I will start your 5 minutes now. And if you wanted to come back after and do your closing comments, if there are questions from other people, and I do have one other person on the list. So if you want to ask your questions now, I'm going to follow you today.
You are a most generous chair, unlike some other chairs. I'm only kidding. Okay. Anyways, thank you, Chair Vanderbeek. Much appreciated. Manager Field, what a comprehensive, excellent report, and timely as well. I just want to thank you so much. Given the Christmas holidays, given sadly, tragically, and never to forget for all of my colleagues, never to forget the loss of the tragic life of little Jude Strickland, 11-year-old, to the family of Pastor Jamie and wife Vanessa and his brothers Noah, Blaze, and Haddon. A yeoman's job of Manager Field, you and your team bringing this forward. And as well, never forgetting too, Tim Taylor and Tiffany Bound Kuchar, husband and wife partners, and the power of their 166 name petition and the excellent delegation they gave 2 weeks ago as well. So Manager Field, before I do some closing comments, I just want to be clear. You're recommending today upper gauge from Rymel to Stone Church be reduced to 40 kilometers if approved today and hopefully ratified at council next week. You're recommending the Little Royal Vista section from upper gauge to in front of Temple Mead School be reduced from 40 to 30. And you're recommending the Temple Mead Drive section in front of the school from Ingrid Court to Tudor Court be reduced from 40 to 30. Through you, Madam Chair, just to Mike, for the community listening in, Mike, just to confirm.
Mike?
Through the chair to the councillor, I got my video working again, by the way. Yes, that's all correct. So reduction of the speed limit on upper gauge, and then you got it exactly right as far as the reductions within the Temple Mead neighborhood itself.
And your fourth recommendation, Manager Field, about that upper gauge section between Rymel and Stone Church being declared a community safety zone. You know, one of the implied recommendations and requests through the petition, Madam Chair, was that with the designation, there would also be the flashing yellow signs as you enter and exit the intersection at Royal Vista. Is that part of your fourth recommendation with the community safety zone, Mike? Or can we at least have some kind of flashing amber lights above the community safety zone signs? Please explain for my community what that will entail. Through you, Madam Chair, please.
Mike?
Through the chair to the councillor, that's a good question. The community safety zone signage does not include flashing beacons. Those flashing beacons are used for time restricted school zones. The standard practice within the Ontario Traffic Manual is that we do not use flashing beacons outside of those kind of constraints because it erodes the meaning of those beacons. So for now, it's just the signage is what will be installed, and there'll be a bit of a multitude of signage. There'll be signage at the beginning and end of that community safety zone, and then there'll be supplementary signage within that area showing that if you're coming off of a side street and you're turning onto upper gauge, then there'll also be community safety zone signage to make sure that upper gauge is designated.
Okay, Manager Field, sounds like, Madam Chair, that in spite of what the community ideally would have wanted, Mike, it sounds like after everything hopefully is approved today and ratified next week, that there'll be enough awareness, visible, strong awareness on upper gauge from Stone Church to Rymel, specifically where hundreds of children cross at Royal Vista, at the full light at Royal Vista, still with the school crossing guard, that you feel with these measures, there will be enough of a strong presence of what to do and what to do properly as a motorist. Through you, Madam Chair, to Mike.
Mike?
Yep, through the chair to the councillor, absolutely. The signage is going to be there, and it'll also be consistent with how we're applying a signage for all the other community safety zones in the city. So, you know, it's standardization as far as what the motorists and the road users see is important as well.
And last question, Madam Chair, and then put me on the speakers list after the other members of committee wish to ask questions or speak as well. I don't want to monopolize, but obviously extremely important to the area I represent. And Manager Field, the ASE, I just want to make sure for my communities of Eleanor, Temple Mead neighborhoods, and the Temple Mead Community School Council. So we got three, if you will, movements and organized areas that came together to strongly insist on these additional traffic measures. I need to give them some time frame. You know I'll be advocating hard, Mike, that ASE photo radar, that most people would know it as, photo radar equipment be installed along upper gauge, and as well the curb lane, the southbound curb lane hopefully being converted eventually to a right turn only that many constituents brought to my attention. Can you give some time frame, Mike? Are we looking at a month? Are we looking at between now and the fall, possibly an update in the summer? Through you, Madam Chair, please.
Thank you, Mike.
Through the chair to the councillor. So those two questions, I'll just address them separately as well. So the ASC pilot is going to conclude later this year, and we'll be reporting back to Public Works Committee with the results of that pilot and with recommendations associated it. And then from there, should those recommendations be to permanently implement the ASC program in the city, then that's the kind of the time which we would possibly be in a position where we could have ASC running on upper gauge.
Okay.
So it's contingent upon the pilot being completed and then the recommendations going through committee and council and being approved. And then the physical changes to upper gauge, that work is ongoing right now. And what I want to do is have that work rolled up so that physical changes will require money to make those. So I want to make sure that we do that work as best we can, so that's in alignment with the 2022 capital program, so that we can put forward a capital ask for next year's budget to fund any of those physical changes that we may want to make out there.
Thank you, Manager Field, for all the answers. Madam Chair, thank you for your indulgence. Put me on for closing comments, please, and eventually moving the report's recommendations. Thank you.
I'll do that. Thank you, Councillor Jackson. Councillor Danko, you had some questions?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just really want to thank Councillor Jackson for his work on this, for his community, for their involvement, and also staff for their really fast turnaround on this particular section of upper gauge. I know this is something that really impacted me personally quite a bit, and I know it's been fairly emotional for staff, for committee as well. So it's good to see action on this in this fast turnaround and in this manner. I'm just gonna connect a couple dots through these discussions of traffic calming on major arterial roadways. So can I just get clarification? I know it's in the report, but I'd just like to put it on the record from staff what the classification of Upper Gauge Avenue is, the roadway classification.
Mike?
Through the chair to the council, I believe it's a major arterial roadway.
It's a major arterial roadway. It's a commuter route for the South Mountain to access the link in the Red Hill Valley Expressway. And, there is, thinking back through Councillor Marula's initial initiatives for Kenilworth Avenue, changing the speed limits, to other discussions that we've had on arterial roadways. I think it's just important for this committee to recognize that just because it's a commuter link, just because it's a major arterial, it doesn't mean that the people that live in those neighborhoods don't deserve a safe access to school. And just as a follow-up on that as well, I heard the discussion. I think Councillor Jackson mentioned about some lane configurations, and there's discussion about changing the built configuration of upper gauge. Can I just get a little bit more information from Manager Field of what is being considered there? Are we considering lane reductions, or reconfiguration, turning lanes, that kind of thing, or the intersection? What specifically is on the table?
Mike?
Through the chair to the councillor, we are focusing on the intersection of Upper Gauge and Stone Church. There is an existing lane that we're considering either altering in some way or removing, and then we're also looking at other opportunities on Upper Gauge itself to in relation to Vision Zero principles and the task at hand. And I don't want to speak to those treatments at this time because we haven't developed them enough, but there's many different tools in the toolbox as far as what we can do for an arterial roadway and still be able to do some shape or form of traffic calming.
Thank you. And just finally, from an engineering perspective, the final recommendations will be on best practices from traffic safety, pedestrian safety. Just your assurance through that.
Mike?
Yep, through the chair, absolutely. Everything that we do, we want to make sure that there's, it's an evidence-based approach and that it's formalized by industry best practices.
Thank you. Those are all the questions I had.
Thank you. Councillor Jackson, you wanted to close? I don't see any additional speakers.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Councillor Danko, thank you very much for the intelligence of the questions you've asked and fleshing out some more information for the community's edification. And can I just dovetail on Councillor Danko's question to Manager Field, because Mike, the request of all major arterials, possibly hypothetically being 40. Can I ask through you, Madam Chair, to Mike, is there any restrictions under the Highway Traffic Act, also known as the HTA? Are there any restrictions there that traffic department have to take into account as you're reviewing any particular situation? Because I think it's germane to what Councillor Danko, I think in the line of questioning where he was taking this discussion down the road, pardon the pun, but I'm just wondering, Manager Field, I think my community needs to hear, are there any restrictions with the HTA that allowed you to do what you did, but there's maybe a bigger issue that still we're handcuffed with? Through you, Madam Chair, please.
Mike?
Yeah, through the councillor, or through the chair to the councillor. Not that I can think of off the top of my head. The designation of the school zones was the primary one that was kind of didn't enable us to fulfill that one request from the community. Everything that we do has to be measured against the Highway Traffic Act because that is the regulation. But there's nothing that I can flag, and maybe Edward might be able to help me with this. But I don't think that there's anything within it that would restrict us at this moment.
Okay. That's fine, Manager Field. I accept that. So, Chair Vanderbeek, I'll just close with a few comments. I want to read out again, and I want to again thank the leadership of the community. Thousands of families have sincerely, through social media and through the Eleanor Templemead neighborhoods and through the Templemead Community School Council, literally thousands of families and across the city, the Strickland family shared this with me, Madam Chair, have just surrounded this family and embraced them with love, support, and wanting to do whatever they could in their own small way to ensure that the safety of the children for the future and Jude's tragic loss of life will never, ever be in vain, never forgotten, and that something constructive and productive and successful will come out of this. And let the communities know, especially the Strickland family, that the city overall, my colleagues on Public Works and overall on Council, we care so much. I just want to again thank Manager Field, Director Soto, Superintendent Ferguson. So just to do a quick summary, what has been in place since Christmas, those speed monitor digital panels flashing the speed they're doing on Upper Gauge have been installed. Again, I want to thank volunteer Don Sloboda, who lives on Upper Gauge before Christmas. I delivered him 30 slow down signs. He on his own voluntarily installed them on the boulevards. I want to thank Mike for the pedestrian countdown signals before Christmas. Today's recommendations, reducing speed on Upper Gauge, on Royal Vista, on Templemead, designated community safety zone, all important. Mike knows I'm going to be a strong advocate when the photo radar pilots are over and reports back are in the fall. Manager Field, you might as well put a check mark in the Ward 6 councillor that I will be a continued strong supporter that it become a permanent part of our city, just like I was 20 years ago with the red light camera project at that time that seemed iffy. And here we are 20 years later and the good it has done for our community as well. I look forward to your review of the curb lane on Upper Gauge as well. And I want to say for those listening in as well, Madam Chair, I received from Hamilton Police Services this morning, I wish to read it out, from Acting Sergeant Curtis Patton of Division 3, the Mountain Station at Turner Park. Councillor Jackson, some news for you from our patrol on Upper Gauge. We did a speed enforcement and issued yesterday 25 provincial offense notices in a short period of time. They also spent an hour this morning from 8 o'clock to 9 o'clock at Upper Gauge and Royal Vista Drive. Although no PONs, provincial offensive notices were issued this morning in that hour, he wants to report that numerous parents and community members stopped and thanked Hamilton Police Service and the officers for being there. The crossing guard also was very, very grateful for their presence too. And lastly, Madam Chair, entirely separate but intertwined with this tragedy, the Strickland family and I and park staff were supposed to meet this past weekend at Eleanor Park. A snow squall and a multitude of snowstorms got in the way, but that memorial project at Eleanor Park is still a work in progress, working with the Strickland family's permission. So, Madam Chair, committee has just been wonderful. From the sincerity of my heart before Christmas through January, the delegation of Tim and Tiffany, and now today, Councillor Collins.
That's your 5 minutes, but carry on.
Councillor Collins has graciously offered to second my motion to adopt item report 9.1 and all 4 of its recommendations. Thank you, Chair Vanderbeek. Thank you, committee, for just putting up with my long-winded speech, but I felt it was important for the communities listening and viewing in. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jackson. And so we will require an electronic vote on this, and it should be on your screens momentarily. There it is. Thank you. We welcome a unanimous vote to report. Councillor Jackson.
Madam Chair, can I just say to committee, you don't know how important the unanimity of this committee's support has been before Christmas, and obviously ultimately with council support. I'm telling you, in the community, I've had many constituent feedback saying, Tom, that's amazing that the committee and council are unanimously behind us. So thanks again, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Jackson, and for all your work and your sincere assistance for this family and that community, sir. We are now on item 9.2, which is the City of Hamilton Cemeteries bylaw update. And I'd like to call on Kara Bunn, Manager of Parks and Cemeteries, to introduce this report. Kara.
Great, thank you. Through the chair. Good afternoon. I'm Kara Bunn, Manager of Parks and Cemeteries, and today we are providing you with a report which seeks approval to make changes to our cemetery bylaw number 12-151. If approved, we will present these changes to the Bereavement Authority of Ontario for their second level approval. They are the governing body who administers the Funeral, Burial, and Cremation Services Act, which lays out all the legislation which we must follow in providing our cemetery services. There's 2 major changes being presented today, which seek to ensure that the interests of the community are being met. The first item is to provide green burial services, and the second item is to provide the option to be buried with your pet's cremated remains. The other changes and items in the bylaw are housekeeping items, which relate to our cemetery operations. They modernize the bylaw and provide best practices which are seen within the industry currently. For example, staff will no longer provide assistance as pallbearers to ensure the health and safety of our staff. Outer containers will be required in some sections and where we have deeper burials to prevent excessive amounts of movement with unstable soil. That unstable soil could cause tripping hazards at the surface, and also having that outer casket made of concrete will allow the adjacent caskets not to be damaged when we're doing our burials. And one other thing to note is the ceramic photos that we have on flat markers will no longer be allowed. We find that they're just too difficult to maintain and keep them from being damaged. So because of vehicle access and weather conditions, we end up with repeat replacements, and we're not currently budgeted for all these replacements. So I'm here today with my Superintendent of Cemeteries, John Parada, and we will answer any questions you may have about the proposed changes and additions to the bylaw.
Thank you, Kara. Are there any questions for Kara? I don't see any. Oh, Councillor Farr.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Kara. I appreciate the brief summation. I've been looking forward to this, as you know, for some time, and I've also appreciated your update and your patience with me over the last couple of years. Most of our conversations early on were, how are we going to budget natural burials? And now you've found a way forward on that as well. And so I know I'm very appreciative, that's for sure. The one thing I wanted to ask about this report, so I'm glad you're here. Under analysis, page 2 of 4, last paragraph, it says, quote, 2018 recommendation, yada, yada, yada. In our cemetery business plan assessment completed by cemetery planners Lees and Associates, which planned for a natural burial section. And natural burial was a recommendation of council. I didn't know, was there something happening on the same track or a separate track? Because this analysis reads otherwise. It reads like it was a consultant recommendation. And I asked because we've been receiving another bit of an email campaign, nothing major, but urging council ahead of today's meeting to support natural burials. And I kind of laugh. I've responded to each of the 4 so far. I'm sure my colleagues have been receiving them too, saying, well, this is basically just the semantics of setting up the bylaw. Council's already approved natural burials through that motion that I had, and it was 3 years ago now, I think. So I thought it was odd, since this is an initiative, the natural burial piece of this bylaw update is an initiative of council, but it's not referenced, and I think it's odd that folks are asking if we'll support something we've already supported. So where am I missing something? Were we doing something with a consultant at the same time? I don't want to be one of those councillors. This is why I'm asking, who moves a motion for staff to do something that staff are already doing. I find that cheesy. I never want to be that guy. So was I doing that then, or what's going on?
Through the chair, just to clarify, so our Lees report did recommend lots of different options for generating more revenue, and one of them was green burial. But thanks to you and thanks to a lot of the community, that interest was really brought to the forefront, and then council did support moving forward with this. Council support to actually create this and change our bylaws was what made us get to this stage today.
Okay,
So
good.
we appreciate that.
Well, I know at least the 4 people that have been lobbying these last few days will probably appreciate that little bit of a history lesson too. And I'm sorry, also Rochelle. So I'm glad you mentioned it. It was born of an article in the Spec by someone who was very qualified to lobby for this, and I really appreciated her not only getting the word out to me, her counselor, but also the media, and sometimes that's the way great ideas are born, and in fact, a lot of times, and I appreciate that. So just a few more quick questions through you, Madam Chair. On the bylaw itself, which is Appendix, I think it's Appendix A. Maybe it's Appendix A, maybe B. Anyway, there's 2 appendices. It's one of the appendices. Bottom paragraph on page 1 of 8 on natural burial section definition. This is the definition segment of the bylaw. It looks to me, or reads to me, like we're being exclusive to permitting a section within an existing cemetery. And I ask because it looks like we may, at least it reads to me like we're restricting our ability to one day. You and I both know this is a very popular concept, a growing in popularity concept, especially over the last 3 years. There's lots of people with interest, and you've got a long list of folks that are going to be involved in green burials in this city. But are we restricting our ability to have exclusive natural burials only on existing cemetery sites, and limiting our ability in the future to create only a natural natural burial cemetery? Through you, Chair.
So the chair, no. If we do create a new cemetery, we will go through the registrar at the BAO, and we can register that cemetery and designate it as a green burial cemetery at that time. So we're not handcuffing ourselves with this.
Okay, finally, real quick, when do you think we'll be able to open this section of the Mountain Cemetery?
We're hoping that we can start doing our sales next year. So this year will be our construction year and we'll do as much as we can. But as we've discussed in the past, this will be a multi-phase project. This year we're working on construction drawings, getting all of the planting in and starting to build up the field of wildflowers. Wildflowers take time to develop and grow, so we'll be adding to that as over the years. We'll be laying out some walkway locations and a central area for memorialization. So as we will have to refer a couple items possibly to the 2022 budget, but we hope to be able to at least lay out the lot areas, get those registered, and then start selling.
Okay, awesome. Madam Chair, with Kara's description, it may sound like with all that capital work, it might not look natural, but I can tell you through my communications with Kara, once we're through with the capital work, which is a very limited investment, it'll be as natural as one would expect for something as sacred and important to many people moving forward. So it's going to be amazing. The wildflowers, the trails. It is definitely answering a growing call. So much appreciated, Kara. I'm sorry for being a pain in the neck over the last 3 years.
Thank you, Jason. And the next speaker is Councillor Ferguson.
Yeah, thank you. Just one quick question, Kara. Could you just remind me, what are the cemeteries where you're going to permit natural barriers?
Through the chair.
Yep. Yes.
Through the chair, we're working with Mount Hamilton as our first site to build the first cemetery that will have exclusive green burial. And that's already in a master plan for Mount Hamilton. And we also chose that site because it's quite central to the city. So we'll be able to service all of the city that way.
So you're not going to use any existing cemeteries and change part of them over to natural?
Not currently, but in the future, we could look at it if this really takes off and we have a lot of interest.
Okay, thanks very much.
Thank you. Councillor Pearson.
Thank you, Kara and John. Welcome. And an excellent report. I'm supportive of this going forward because this is the future. I just wanted to ask a couple of things, just going through one Councillor Farr raised on the bylaw. Can you just clarify, Kara, the outer, where was it now? Sorry. Shoot. It said something, you know what, I had it now, I missed it. It's the containers for the green burials. They have to be all biodegradable, but it mentioned something about handles or no handles. Would you not have handles on whatever container is used?
Kara?
I'm just trying to find it in the bylaw.
Yeah, just one
Oh,
second.
here it is. Okay, so it's page 5 of 8 of Appendix A. It says, free from high gloss and all that. And then it says include handles in the event of a casket. Well, what else would it be?
Because, through the chair, because you could have just a plain box that's just made out of a biodegradable material. In order to transport that box, we prefer to have handles so that it's easier to move it.
Okay, so but in the event it's a casket, so technically they would have to have handles. I'm just wondering how it would be maneuvered from point A to B and placed in position. So I just wanted to be sure I was understanding that. And the other in the report, appreciate the concern of staff safety. I didn't know that staff offered themselves at times to be pallbearers. So certainly whatever they did in the past, I'm sure is appreciated, but there is a safety concern. The picture etchings and the photographs, you mentioned we're no longer doing that. Is there some other option that's now available to residents, obviously, that want to have some sort of visible memento on their markers?
Through the chair, I'll start this, and if John wants to step in, I'll let him. Our concern is mainly with the ones that are ceramic because they're very fragile. You can imagine if frost gets in there or we're driving across the section that they'll break. If they have something that's very robust, then we can certainly look at that option. This particular bylaw speaks to anything that's very fragile, not permitting that. And of course, anything that's already already in place, we're not asking them to remove that and put something else in place. We'll allow it to be grandfathered in.
Thank you. And that was my next question, because I'm sure there's a lot of them when I go through the Stony Creek cemeteries, etc. The memorial benches and memorial niche benches. So are these benches that residents bring? Because I don't generally see them in the Stony Creek cemetery, but I may have missed them. So are we suggesting, or maybe would it be an avenue of residents on behalf of their loved ones contributing towards the purchase of a bench that would meet the city standards? Is that what we're looking at doing?
Kara?
Through the chair, yes. So there's two options here. There is a memorial bench where they would purchase through the city a bench that is a standardized bench that we are comfortable with the longevity of and the maintenance of. And then also it would aesthetically match all the other ones in the cemetery. The other option is for a bench that you can inter your cremated remains in. So that bench then becomes essentially like a lot purchase, and then the interred remains would go into that bench. And that would also be sold through us.
And be placed somewhere throughout the cemetery? Oh, excellent. Okay, so thank you for the clarification. And yeah, I think it's, this is a big step forward. And pleased that, the direction we're going in. And I think it's excellent. And well, I'm going to ask one other, Madam Chair, if I can, is the scattering of ashes. So we're not allowing that as of yet. So we would have to look for a space. Is that what's being suggested? To scatter ashes openly?
Through the chair, we are allowing it, so it can only be in a designated section. So by purchasing that interment right, you're allowed to scatter the ashes of one individual. We wanted to be clear that by purchasing that right, it didn't allow you to scatter the remains anywhere in the cemetery or on any of the lots and things like that. It had to be in a designated section. And that also meant that you would only be able to inter one person with that interment right. You wouldn't then be able to come back and scatter the remains of, other family members.
The whole family. Okay, gotcha. And I appreciate that. Thank you, Madam Chair, for allowing me the opportunity to ask the questions. And I'm sure for anyone viewing, it certainly has provided a good understanding of where we're going. Thank you, Kara and John.
Thank you. And I have no additional speakers. And so I need a mover and a seconder to approve the recommendation in the report. So it will be moved by Councillor Farr and seconded by Councillor Pearson. And the vote will be on the screen momentarily. And that carries unanimously. Thank you. All right, and we're moving on to item 9.3, which is moving Hamilton towards a zero plastic waste plan. Report PW 21006, and this is an outstanding business item. May I please have a mover and seconder to approve the recommendations of the report? It is moved by Councillor Nan and seconded by Councillor Danko. Thank you. Is there any discussion respecting item 9.3? Councillor Nan?
Thank you, through you, Chair, and thank you to Ryan, Angela, Craig, and team for putting together the plan that's before us as a committee today to help get our city to move towards being a zero plastic waste city. I did have a number of questions related to the report, and we'll try and keep it within the 5-minute timeline. So the first question was, I appreciated the pillar-based breakdown of the plan and strategy moving forward. And one of the core elements of the motion that led to this report was wondering about whether or not we as a municipality could ban single-use plastics. And the report is recommending that we can't do so as a municipality. I was wondering if staff could please clarify for the public why we cannot.
Angela?
Yeah, for sure. Through you, Madam Chair, to Councillor Nan. So in the research...
Angela, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Could you just state your name and your position
yeah,
for the public? Thank you.
For sure. It's Angela Story. I'm the Manager of Business Programs in the Environmental Services Division. I'm also sitting in for Craig Murdoch, the Director, today as he has an appointment to attend to. So through you, Madam Chair, to Councillor Nan, we did have some conversations with legal services early on in this project because a number of municipalities had started to do some individual banning of products like grocery bags, for example. And so working with legal, they did some research and some municipal scanning, and their advice coming back would be if we were to ban a product, we would have significant challenges from businesses, and we would likely need to do significant consultation prior to having a ban come in place. Because of that reason, in addition to that, we have been following along, as you know, any of the provincial and the federal potential legislation coming down the pipe. And because the federal plan that is expected in sometime in 2021, they were looking to ban a number of items in the federal plan. So legal recommended to us that we piggyback on the federal bans that are coming because they'd be able to do it wholesale at a federal level, or if the province decided to do it as well, rather than municipality by municipality doing it. So it wasn't per se that we couldn't, it was just recommended against it due to some of the challenges that we would face, and also that it's coming already and we should just learn from that.
Okay, appreciate that. So the federal ban coming as being the kind of highest body, that ban would be implemented all the way through down to every municipality and community across the country. Is that your understanding of how the federal ban is going to be implemented?
Through the chair, that is what they're that is what is coming. Again, it was the most recent announcement was, or the most recent update was in October. We needed to provide comments back to the recommendation back in December. So we did do that. We're supportive of it, of course. And by banning it at the federal level, it will automatically roll across the country.
Thank you. And through the chair, next question would be around compostables that were referenced in the report. And so I appreciate that we had to do our own kind of evidence-based testing of some of the compostable alternatives that are out on the market here in Hamilton and how they fare in our existing facility. And based on that, have put forward a list of compostable recommendations in terms of preferred compostable products as a group of alternatives. So through you to staff, could you share with us what is the recommendation moving forward? I see it as it relates to city facilities, but part of this motion and the work towards moving to being a zero waste, single-use plastic municipality is helping businesses make better choices about the types of material that they use to carry out their takeout services, for example. We're seeing a lot of styrofoam in our garbage, and especially on windy garbage days, floating around and filling up our streets. So from that perspective, is there a plan to communicate out with our business community and specifically food vendors around the use of styrofoam and what alternatives we recommend?
Great. Yeah, through the chair. So one of the pillars that you did note was promotion and education. So we have sort of three prongs to that, or three action items under the promotion and education pillar. The first one would be to utilize the existing tools that we have. An example of that might be our annual waste calendar that goes out where we promote to residents. We would have additional information related to reducing single-use plastics. The second action item under P&E would be expanding the education tools that we have, and that could be print material again, like adding additional information in a calendar or another document. It could also be virtual tools, so putting some information out on the city website so that people would be able to access it and get the information that they're looking for. And the third item, which is new, so it's under the title of Create. So we want to create educational material for businesses, Councillor Nan, so that we do want to promote, of course, reusable first, but in the absence of being able to have a reusable product, then we would want to go to those compostable items that you referenced. So in our testing, we did do a number of tests in late 2019 and early 2020. As you would read in the report, our composting process is about 35 to 42 days. So most of the compostable alternatives that we put through the cycle didn't fully break down to come into our high quality compost. Compostable alternatives out on the market, there are a lot of them coming in because it's definitely a way that producers want to go. But in order to be deemed compostable, they need to break down in 85 days. And as you would have seen, that's usually under ideal lab conditions. So most of the items that we put through our testing process either were screened out after the end of our process because they hadn't broken down enough, or they were screened through and they might be the little PLA plastic-like material that would be seen as contamination in our compost. So what we did come up with from an alternative that we would recommend would be the materials of bamboo or paper. So although there are a lot of items that are deemed a compostable alternative, we did find that the bamboo items and the paper items broke down the most. They also provided some applicable material that would participate positively in our composting process. And even if they did end up in landfill at the end of the process, they definitely are better for the environment, sitting in landfill as something that almost composted in 35 days, rather than a plastic or styrofoam material, as you say now, that will stay there forever.
Thank you. And through you, perhaps then in that promo and education work to come in the plan that we can work with our local BIAs to help disseminate that information and help educate our local business community to make the choice of moving towards bamboo and compressed paper products. That would be our preferred line if they were given the takeout culture and that not changing for a while in this pandemic, that would be the preferred recommended takeout containers from the municipality. Through you to staff, question regarding events. So I was hoping to see a little bit more here that went towards how we as a municipality can put forward kind of our ideal scenario that should an event take place in a city park or city property, what the requirements would be and how we might be able to best facilitate people, whether they're vendors or event organizers, to reduce and eventually eliminate the use of single-use plastic. So I read the pieces around banning water bottles in certain areas where we already have water fountains in city parks, for example, or encouraging event organizers to rent their own water station should that be required due to the scale of the event, i.e. I think about Gage Park and our big festivals, we see thousands upon thousands of people. So the one drinking fountain we have in the park would be wholly insufficient. And instead seeing those water stations or refillable stations there makes a lot of sense. But from the perspective of those events generating waste and how we can facilitate the collection of compostables, was there any further thought there on event planning and how that is getting integrated in either through the seed application process or some other alternative path in terms of enabling those event organizers to create, one, less waste to landfill, and two, if they are capable of setting up compostable collection, what is the city's role then?
Great. Through you, Madam Chair.
Excuse me, Angela. I just wanted to let the councillor know that this is her last question in her 5 minutes.
Thank you.
And so
Appreciate
if she wants to come back on later, I'm happy to put her back.
Thank you.
Sorry, go ahead, Angela.
No problem. Through you, Madam Chair. So yes, and it's interesting because we had come to Public Works Committee and Council back in the late fall about our solid waste management master plan. So one of the items in the solid waste management master plan that we are going to be working on in 2021 and 2022 is updating the SEAT, I'll use your term, the SEAT process for supporting events on city property with their waste diversion. So today's report is specific to the single-use plastic reduction, to the compostable alternatives, to the banning of water bottles and single-use coffee cups on city property. But in the master plan, as you know right now, now, we have sort of a requirement to receive waste services. You need to be a really big event, greater than a couple of days, expecting thousands and thousands of people. Those are the folks who are currently eligible for waste support in their events. So we do work with them. You know, we have a number of events every year that we work with. But we have had a few motions, and we have partnered with some councillors on local neighborhood one-day events in the recent past, where we support those events at becoming zero waste or lower waste generated events. So the first thing that we need to do before kind of taking too many steps with the single-use plastic process is to look at the event support that we provide for waste and make sure that we're capturing the appropriate fairs and festivals on city property to provide them with waste services.
Thank you, as always, for the thorough responses, Angela. I'll come back on for a second time, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Danko.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just looking at my notes, the discussion of regulatory ban, I think is important to put that on the record. So that's been answered. The discussion about the events and compostables was a really important, both really important parts of this initiative. So appreciate the clarity on that. Just for the single-use plastics and non-recyclable items that we're going to limit in our city facilities, could you give an overview specifically for the plans there? I'm thinking, I think I saw in the report, you know, coffee cups and coffee lids as well.
Right, through the chair to you, Councillor Danko. The number of items, and maybe it would be helpful for me if I noted the items that the province, or sorry, that the federal government have noted to ban, and again, we're expecting it at some point in 2021. So those items are plastic food packaging, plastic cutlery, plastic stir sticks, plastic straws, plastic grocery bags, and six-pack rings. So the plastic rings that go around six packs that you buy. So the reason we don't see those in our report today is because the federal government is already going to push that forward. So as a result, and thinking of our scope of in-city operations and on city property for organized events, we looked at the water bottles and coffee cups, which would include coffee lids if needed. So what we would look at is we do have a number of buildings in the city, recreational facilities mostly, that have concession stands. We do have a few cafes in our buildings. So we would want to work with them to eliminate the single-use coffee cups with lids and also the single-use water bottles in those situations. The other item, which is not related to the ban component, but related to the incentives and fees pillar in this strategy, is investigating the possibility of charging less for a cup of coffee if you arrived with your own reusable coffee cup. The alternative that would be charging more for a cup of coffee, 10 cents or whatever the cup is worth, if you didn't have a reusable coffee cup. So under the investigation portion for the incentives and fees, we're trying to figure out which way we would go from the coffee cup perspective. And for the water bottle perspective, it would be where we have a water bottle fill station, we would require that those concession stands or cafes do not sell bottled water.
Okay, thank you. So that work for incentives versus fees, that's still ongoing. That hasn't been decided at this point.
Through the chair, correct. We've just listed it in here as the action item. We haven't done the investigation yet.
Okay, thank you. And just touching on the water bottles as well. So obviously where there is a water fill station, don't need to sell water bottles, but thinking about the value of our recyclable material, my understanding is plastics have a fairly low value, even if it is a recyclable item such as plastic water bottles or any plastic beverage container versus cans. And I think most beverages are available in steel cans versus plastic bottles in one format or another. The only one I could think of that's not readily available in steel cans would be sports drinks. Is that something that maybe not with this, action right now, where we're just focusing on water bottles, but specifically eliminating all plastic beverage containers when there is a steel can alternative on the basis that those steel cans have value as recyclable material?
Yeah, through the chair, that's an excellent question, and we'll look into that specifically on the city property and in city buildings. We do want to work with public health to update any of the policies that they have on the food and beverage policy as an example. So we will definitely include that in there as well. So for this report, it was reusable alternative or compostable alternative, but there definitely would be a branch to this, which would just be better alternative, kind of as a whole.
Better alternative. I like that. Thank you. And that last thing I just wanted to touch on in the report, it does mention the survey and some figures for public support for this. And I think the number in there is 85.2% public support. Specifically, what was the question that was asked? And I don't know if you want to elaborate on just that level of public support for these kinds of initiatives.
Sure, through the chair, without reading verbatim, because I don't even know what page it's on right now, but you are right. It was around 85% of the respondents were in favor of the city working on policies to reduce single-use plastics, including black plastics and styrofoam.
Thank you, and just for the public record, having an 85% public support for anything is remarkable. So I think this is something that is widely supported by across all political stripes, across all members of our constituency. And you see it in the public when you go to a restaurant now. I can't remember the last time I went to a local restaurant that didn't have recyclable, compostable packaging. So we're definitely on brand, I guess you could say, with moving forward with these recommendations through this policy. So appreciate all the work. Thank you, Madam Chair. Those are all the questions I had.
Thank you. 17 seconds left. That wasn't bad. Councillor Nan, for a second time.
I didn't expect to be back on so quickly. Thank you through the chair. My final question was around procurement and contract agreements in terms of us as a municipality shifting our practices. So if you could, through you to staff, could you just highlight what staff are projecting as being a path forward? And then I had a question regarding contract agreements, given that the fees and incentives isn't something that is going to be charged where there is contracted out food services on city facilities. Thank you.
Thank you. Angela?
For sure. Thanks. Through the chair to Councillor Nan. I'll kind of put them together because they're both procurement related. So we, do I want to use the term we got lucky on this one as well, but from the recyclable material or the recyclable content in the items that we buy as a municipality or now going forward as residents or businesses, that was another one of the items that the federal government is putting forward in their plan. They put it under performance standards. And an example that they gave was minimum recycled content, because the goal is to get people to want to purchase goods that are made of more recyclable content. So we are going to piggyback off of that one. We have done a number of stakeholder sessions with procurement to look at the different contracts that exist to see the types of items that might apply in that category. So we'll continue to work on that one. And similarly, there is a section in the report, we do acknowledge today that a business or a city department that needs to purchase compostable alternatives to their plastic packages, it is quite a bit more expensive right now. And the good news we see with the federal government coming through with their plan is once people start buying more of it, then it should be more mass produced, and therefore the cost should come down. So we have, chatted with the golf courses. We've chatted with some rec staff about looking at the materials and the budgets for what we need to buy going forward.
Well, thank you for that. A good ECDEV plug there too. So any Hamiltonians interested in a business idea, there may be a lucrative one there in terms of producing easily compostable materials that could be inside of, that could help deal with the current cost of making that switch for businesses. Thank you to staff and thank you to everyone who has done the work on bringing this plan forward and looking forward to the next steps. Thank you.
Thank you. And that exhausts the speakers list. And so I'll just remind you, it was moved by Councillor Nan, seconded by Councillor Danko. And we do need a electronic vote on that. So it should be on your screen now. Since our great staff are just being so efficient over here. And that carries unanimously. Okay, item 9.4, Canada Healthy Communities Initiative Intake 1, and that is report FCS 21020. I'd like to call on John Savoya, Senior Policy Advisor, to introduce this report. John?
Through the chair, thank you very much for letting me go over this new program. So last week on February 9th, the federal government announced the launch of an initial application intake for projects under the Canada Healthy Communities Initiative. This initiative is to support communities as they create and adapt public spaces and programming and services for public spaces to respond to ongoing needs arising from the COVID-19 epidemic over the next 2 years. It's a $31 million investment from the federal government, and it's intended to fund small-scale infrastructure projects to create safer, more vibrant, and inclusive communities. The $31 million that they've put forward is going to cover 2 intakes, and it's funding that's been repurposed from an existing funding program related to their Smart Cities Challenge initiative. So this is recycled money that the federal government, they had basically, it was undersubscribed, this other program, and so they're repurposing the funding into this new Canada Healthy Communities Initiative. There are 3 themes that they're looking to support: creating safe and vibrant public spaces, improving mobility options, and digital solutions. So there's going to be 2 intakes. The first one is now open, and it closes on March 9th. So that's why we're rushing to get this before you, because we need to get it to the February 24th council meeting, as that's the only council opportunity for us, for you council to endorse the selected project is next week's meeting. So the funding ranges from $5,000 to $250,000 for eligible projects. We as a local government, a municipal government, are one of the eligible applicants. There are also community non-for-profit organizations that are eligible, Indigenous groups, and the provinces and territories. Each applicant can submit 1 application per intake. And the eligibility of the expenses is from April 1st of last year, 2020, to June 30th, 2022. And so we obviously didn't have a lot of time, nor were we expecting this funding program, but certainly we were always looking to take advantage of any funding opportunities that there are. As such, staff did identify 4 projects that, based on our interpretation of the application guidelines, that could possibly be put forward for this initial intake. So the 4 projects were: 1, Gage Park Children's Discovery Garden; 2nd, Hamilton Collaborative Talent Zone; the 3rd one was the Public Space and Public Wi-Fi Connectivity Project; and the 4th, the Hamilton Street Art Festival 2021. So the staff met just a couple days ago and basically reviewed these 4 potential projects against the assessment criteria, the evaluation criteria as spelled out in the applicant guidelines. And the one that best fits, the one that we think is the strongest project that hopefully will gain favorable consideration for funding is the Hamilton Street Art Festival 2021 project, which has a cost of up to $250,000. If we are unsuccessful in getting that funding, the public art installations that would have been installed this in 2021 will not occur. So without the federal funding, this will not move forward. So it's currently an unfunded initiative. As far as the how this project aligns best, you can see on page 7 of 8. I won't go through all that, but you can see there's a number of evaluation criteria and how this Hamilton Street Art Festival project aligns to that. There will be a second intake. We've been told that it will occur in May and it will close in early June. And we'll hear back on the March 9th intake by the end of April. And with that, I welcome any questions that the committee may have.
Okay, and I do have one person on the speakers list at this point. It's Councillor Jackson.
Thanks, Chair Vanderbeek. Thanks, Manager Savoya. Good timing, and I'm very supportive, obviously, of the project that you're putting forward. Can I ask, and maybe it's really reaching on my part, any opportunities on criteria, given a number of school board sites that our wards in our city often are dealing with in terms of potential surpluses and communities losing green space? Is there any eligibility there in the next phases that we can put in a potential site to preserve open space and green spaces, especially during this time of the pandemic? To you, Madam Chair. And again, John, I just did a quick glance of your report today, and I may be reaching, but I thought I'd ask.
John?
So through the chair, generally speaking, land purchases are generally not considered eligible expenses for this program. And I would note that it's very limited in the amount of funding that is available. And I think it's going to be very competitive to obtain any funding whatsoever, given it's only $31 million for 2 intakes. That's for the entire country, not just for Ontario.
Thought I'd ask John, and again, I'm supportive of the $250,000 you're putting forward for the particular art program that you're recommending. Thanks, Chair Vanderbeek.
Thank you. Councillor Danko.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As I see Ken Coit is in the meeting this afternoon, and Councillor Farr and I are both representatives on the Arts Advisory Commission, and I was just wondering if maybe Ken would like the opportunity to expand a little bit on what the Street Art Festival is going to look like, and just kind of the vision for what we're planning with that.
Ken?
Through you, Madam Councillor, can you hear me, everyone?
We can hear you.
Yeah, it's Ken Coit, I'm Manager, Placemaking Public Art and Projects in the Tourism and Culture Division. This is a really unique opportunity for us. This is the street art is growing very quickly in the city and across the country, and Hamilton has really been uniquely and well represented, especially in 2019 with the Concrete Canvas Festival. We've approved the Art in Public Places policy that kind of directs us forward on this. So we have a great opportunity to align some of our policies around community art and outreach and graffiti prevention. We've already looked at and identified a number of sites across the city, including the Keddy Trail and other rail trails that align well with the mobility aspects of this grant application. So we have a really great opportunity to also get some money out to artists and community groups representing marginalized communities affected by COVID, and give us some great outdoor spaces to take part in this summer. Hopefully we can get out and enjoy outdoor spaces this summer.
Thank you. And one of the proposals that I wanted to be a little parochial, I think is the word, right, Councillor Jackson? is the space under the Claremont access at the intersection with the Jolly Cut. That spot is kind of the nexus of wards 1, 8, 7, and 3, where we all kind of come together. And I think there's a really exciting opportunity there for something really amazing to do to animate that kind of space. And so just just for me to see that in there, maybe Ken, I could give you again an opportunity to maybe expand a little bit on what the plan is for, or some of the ideas that we've been kicking around. Let's put it that way for that space.
Ken?
Through you, Madam Chair, as you know, it's a big towering space when you take the rail trail underneath there. We've had numerous asks over the years for artists to paint those columns, and it's they do get a lot of tagging on them. So it's an excellent opportunity. Our partners in Concrete Canvas and other community groups are well connected to some really excellent muralists from across Ontario that are very interested in being part of the project here, mentoring some younger artists, and really helping to find that space. There's been numerous neighborhood placemaking initiatives there, stages, small performances. It's covered. It's close to it's on the rail trail. It's close to the Keddy Trail. It's close to the escarpment access, and it has a great access to Corktown Park as well. So it's an excellent kind of nexus space, and it could make a really, really, really interesting and distinct and unique Hamilton place.
Thank you. And just the last question I had, because it is in the report, it was the Wi-Fi in city parks. That's I believe we have a report coming on that as a result of Councillor Marula's motion earlier, and not seeing the funding for this, but there's still. I just want to make sure that that's not something that we're not going to proceed with, that we're still looking at that, but it just won't be part of this funding envelope.
Through you, Madam Chair, it's my understanding in working with Cyrus and the other staff group that that would be the preferred project for the second intake.
Excellent. Really looking forward to that as well. Thanks so much. Those are all the questions I had.
Thank you. Councillor Collins.
Thanks, Madam Chairman. Can you hear me okay? Hello?
Yes, I can.
Oh, super. Thank you. I'm certainly supportive of what's in front of us, and I just wonder whether I had presented a project to staff several months ago that I was working on and was intended to fund with resources that I already have access to, and that was a virtual tour of the waterfront trail that would highlight the historic nature of the beach community. There's lots of stories associated with the lighthouse. Certainly there's a strong Indigenous history to be told as it relates to the lakefront, as well as the trail that had existed prior to European settlement, and of course all the shipwrecks off the shore there. And so historically I've worked to install historical interpretive panels in the park. And instead of dotting the trail with 6 or 10 more panels, I was looking at a virtual tour where people from their mobile device could hear stories that could be told as they were walking along the trail. And I didn't know what kind of technology to purchase or to investigate. And so I had reached out to Culture, and I think they highlighted that the project that I was working on might be eligible for this fund. And I don't know if I'm mistaken, whether this is the fund and whether the project that I'm referencing could be part of the second application process or not. So I was hoping just to check in with them at this point to find out whether I am mistaken and it's separate funding, or whether this is in fact the same fund.
Through you, Madam Chair, I believe that's I'm not 100% certain, but the Heritage presentation section is doing a lot of work around Hamilton 175. That is more geared towards telling the city's history and heritage stories, and I think that is probably the funding and the program you've been connected with. I believe we talked quickly, and I put you over to Chris Redford, So that's probably the program. This program and what we're proposing here would be, I know there is a possible site identified in your ward on the beach strip, Veterans Memorial Park, as a spot for a mural. So that could be the subject of a mural, depending what the community is looking for down in that area.
Thanks, Ken. Through you, Madam Chairman. Ken, so there, I noticed though in here there's a digital component. So if I'm not necessarily suggesting that the funds we're passing today might be of some assistance to me, but would this program, the intake process in round 2, be a possible funding source for the project that I just referenced in Confederation Park and through the Waterfront Trail?
Through my reading of it, through you, Madam Chair, through my reading of it, it may be. I haven't looked at it for that lens. I don't know if John wants to comment.
I would, through the chair, I would agree with you, Ken, that I think there's potential there. I think we've got the opportunity of time now before the second intake, which won't be opening up until May. So that gives us time, Councillor, to evaluate further opportunities or potential applications.
Terrific. Thanks for those answers. I appreciate it.
Okay. I do not have any further speakers. And so may I please have a mover and a seconder to approve the recommendations in the report? Councillor Nan and Councillor Merla. Okay, thank you. Is there any further discussion on this? Seeing none, the vote will be on your screen. And that passes unanimously. So we move to notices of motion. And Councillor Collins, I understand you'll be moving to waive the rules of order to allow the motion on the Green Acres Park pedestrian pathway replacement and sidewalk repairs on Valley Drive, Felker Crescent, and Faircourt Drive. Would you like to introduce your notice of motion?
I would, Madam Chairman. It's moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Marula, that the rules of order be waived to allow for the introduction of a motion respecting Green Acres Park pedestrian pathway replacement and sidewalk repairs on Valley Drive, Felker Crescent, and Faircourt Drive in Stony Creek.
Thank you. Is there any discussion on waiving the rules? Okay, and we'll need an electronic vote to waive the rules so that this motion can come forward. And that carries unanimously. Councillor, you want to introduce your actual motion?
Thank you, and I appreciate allowing the walk on because I'm just trying to get these in front of the committee so they can be tendered this year. So the later I wait, the less likely it is that the tender can go out. You have, it's very, very basic in front of you. It's from the Ward 5 minor maintenance account, and I'd be happy to answer any questions if there are any. Seconded by Councillor Marula.
Okay, moved by yourself, seconded by Councillor Sam Marula. Any discussion on this? No. We'll just have the vote as soon as the staff can get it up. There it is. And that passes unanimously. So, Councillor Collins, would you like to waive the rules for your next notice of motion?
I would, Madam Chair, and it's in regards to a toboggan location in my ward, and that the rules of order be waived to allow for the introduction of a motion respecting designation of the slope at Lake Avenue and Huckleberry Drive, Hamilton, as a sanctioned tobogganing location on city property in Ward 5. And I believe that you offered to second that earlier this afternoon.
I did, sir.
Thank you.
So this will be a motion to waive the rules at this point. Any discussion on waiving the rules? No? Just the vote. The vote should be on. And that passes unanimously. And your motion on the floor now, sir.
Yeah, and I've been given an alternate one from the one that I distributed to the members earlier this afternoon from Clerk Pilon, who sent it to me, and it's a more concise, and I'll read it. Whereas at its meeting February 10th, 2021, Council removed the Clause D that no further sites be added as designated tobogganing hills within the city from item 10 of the General Issues Committee Report 17025 respecting report PW 15086C, identifying tobogganing locations on city property in order to introduce additional tobogganing locations within the city of Hamilton, following on-site reviews by Recreation, Parks, and Risk Management staff, and subject to the availability of operational funding to support additional tobogganing hills. Therefore, be it resolved, A, that staff of Recreation, Parks, and Risk Management be directed to perform an on-site review and assess the operational funding required to designate the slope at Lake Avenue and Huckleberry Drive as an identified tobogganing location on city property, and B, that upon successful review by staff be directed to make the necessary amendments to the identified tobogganing locations on city property. And if I might speak to it, I was, like everyone else, after the lawsuit that we had faced from a local Hamilton lawyer back in, in the early, I think it was the 5 or 6 years ago, that was settled, and we were forced to then revise our bylaw and come up with designated locations. The only two that were signed in my area that I was aware of, and through the staff consultation at the time, was the Green Hill Reservoir, and those signs are still up, as well as Kings Forest Golf Course, which has subsequently been annexed through the ward boundary review. And so that Councillor Marula took that over in the ward boundary risk process that took place. And so this one wasn't identified and wasn't signed. And I believe that staff noticed activity over the past year at this location. It's historically been used for as long as I can remember, probably 40 years. It's a very gentle slope. It is really a kiddie hill. It's used by little kids. It's not really for teenagers or adults, but a lot of little kids use this location. And so it's recently been signed. Of course, I received a lot of feedback from the community asking me why it was signed. I think staff have, through their due diligence to play it safe, put a sign up at this location. And this motion responds to those requests from people in the community who'd like to see it reinstated as an official site. So essentially, as you'll note from the recommendation, we're asking staff to do their due diligence to find out whether it is possible at this location and take the necessary steps to reverse the decision that was made just a couple of weeks ago. So I'm certainly able to answer any questions if there are any, but this is asking staff to do due diligence. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Nan, you had a question?
I'm fully in support of the motion. I said it last time with the ones in your ward, Chair. The more sanctioned and safe tobogganing hills we can identify, the safer and more accessible opportunities our children across the city of Hamilton have to enjoy being out in the winter, especially given what we've learned in this pandemic in terms of the necessity of having those safe spaces for our children to be out and about. I did have a question to staff just on the file. In knowing that the activity happened in previous term, and then since then we've been playing this kind of balancing game between risk assessment but also building some accessibility here. And my question is, at what point will we as a municipality look at it from a holistic approach and find out whether or not there are gaps, deficiencies in terms of those accessibilities in certain areas of the city? And is there any work moving forward to address those deficiencies as it relates to tobogganing hills? Is that currently underway anywhere in any work plan?
Who can answer that? Kara.
Thanks, Kara.
Through the chair, Kara Bunn, Manager of Parks and Cemeteries. There's currently a recreational master plan that's being undertaken, so we can certainly ask them to look at that as another option of something to study and see if we've got enough coverage for enough opportunities throughout the city.
I think that would be important. I, of course, support the motion that's before us, and just really paying attention to making sure that there's accessibility across the city for this wonderful activity in the winter. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Pearson.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Councillor Collins. I'm most supportive of this. I'm sorry, and also want to be sure that staff will do their due diligence in the review, because this site does come out onto a roadway. I know it is a very gentle sloping hill, but it brought to my mind of the recent tragedy in the Niagara area of a young man tobogganing with his family there as well, tobogganing down a little bit of a hill that came right up to a roadway, a little gully in a roadway, and he was tragically hit by a truck and killed. So hopefully staff will evaluate that and possibly look at the possibility of installing fencing that makes it safer for everyone. So I'm sure staff will be doing that in their due diligence, and I'm most supportive of this.
Thank you. I see no further speakers. So we will go to a vote, moved by moved by Councillor Collins and seconded by myself. And the vote is on the screen. And that carries unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to thank clerk, staff, and parks for helping me with this last-minute motion. Really.
Okay, thank you. And we're on to item 12, which is amendments to the outstanding business list, general information and other business. So first of all, is there some general information or other business? No, and so we'll be looking at amendments to the outstanding business list, moved by Councillor Pearson, seconded by Councillor Jackson, to remove the proposed City Hall forecourt security enhancements. No, not to remove it. I'm sorry. I read this wrong. The current due date was February the 19th. Today, the proposed new due date is to extend the due date to March 22nd, 21. May I please have a mover and a seconder to approve those amendments? I did that. Sorry. Oh my goodness. Okay, yes, moved by Councillor Pearson, seconded by Councillor Jackson. Correct? All right, and the vote screen. And that carries unanimously. Now, private and confidential, item 13.1 is appointments to the Keep Hamilton Clean and Green Committee for the 2018 to 2022 term. Members of committee, do you wish to move into closed session to discuss item 13.1, or can we do it in public without the discussion? I don't see anyone itching to go in camera. So Councillor Nan, could you please introduce your motion?
I certainly can. It's moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Pauls that the appointments to the Keep Hamilton Clean and Green Committee for the remainder of the 2018 to 2022 term be approved and released publicly following approval by Council.
Okay, I think we have a little challenge. I don't think Councillor Pauls is still on the call.
Oh, in that case, Councillor Marula is the other committee member, please.
Okay. Moved by yourself and seconded by Councillor Sam Marula then. Is there any discussion on this? Not that we can discuss it to too much degree. We'll have an electronic vote and it should be on your screen now. Just waiting on Councillor Pearson. She did. Got it. It passes unanimously. And if someone will move and second adjournment and we vote, we can go home on Friday afternoon. Councillor Pearson.
I'm already home.
What?
Sorry, I didn't realize my microphone was on. My apologies. I said I'm already home.
Well, I'm not. So if we can vote on this, I can go home, and so can the clerk staff. It's on the screen. Thank you. Have a wonderful weekend.
Great job, Madam Chair. Everyone have a great weekend.
Chair, I just want to say again how much I like you. Thank you.
It's very nice of you. I like you too, Councillor Jackson.